Mama, who is the baby in the picture?
That is your brother.
Brother? But we don't have another brother.
You did. You had an older brother.
Mama said Daniel disappeared during a large family gathering. But how does a 3-year-old leave the house, walk all the way to the river, and no one notices?
There was always something about that case that troubled me. Your father,
What about him?
he insisted from the beginning that the boy fell into the river. Parents usually beg us to consider every possibility. Well, your father never did.
The Maxwell family had lived in their large ancestral house for as long as anyone could remember. The house had witnessed weddings, birthdays, funerals, and decades of family history. But as the years passed, the building began to age. The roof leaked whenever it rained, cracks spread along the walls, and the wooden floors creaked with every step. The 3 siblings, Vera, Frederick, and Harriet, eventually convinced their parents that the old house needed a full renovation. One afternoon, while workers were knocking down part of an old wall in their parents' bedroom, something unusual fell out from inside the wall cavity. It was a small metal box covered in dust. Curious, Vera picked it up and wiped the dust away before opening it. Inside was an old photograph. The photo showed their mother and father standing together when they looked much younger, perhaps in their early 20s. Their mother was smiling brightly, holding a small baby in her arms, while their father stood beside her proudly. But the baby was not Vera. It was not Frederick, and it was not Harriet. The 3 siblings stared at the photograph in confusion. "Who is that child?" Harriet asked quietly. None of them had ever seen the picture before. Their mother had always kept family albums neatly arranged in the living room cabinet. Every birthday, every graduation, every celebration had been carefully documented. But this baby, the child in their mother's arms, had never appeared in any album. Frederick turned the photo over.
Look, on the back, see these words.
First miracle, what does that mean?
The room suddenly felt colder. Vera did the math quickly in her head. The year written on the photo was 2 years before she was born. The discovery left them deeply unsettled. For days, the siblings debated whether they should ask their mother about it. Their mother, Florence, had grown quieter with age, and none of them wanted to upset her unnecessarily. But the mystery refused to leave their minds. Finally, one evening, they gathered in the living room.
Mama, we found this in the wall while the workers were renovating. I wondered when this might surface.
Mama, who is the baby in the picture?
That is your brother.
Brother? But we don't have another brother.
You did. You had an older brother. Years before any of you were born, your father and I had our first child. His name was Daniel. But when Daniel was just 3 years old, tragedy struck. One afternoon during a family gathering, he wandered away. By the time anyone realized he was missing, it was already too late. There was a river not far from our home. Everyone believed he must have fallen in. We searched for hours, but we never found him. The loss shattered us. Your father blamed himself for not watching him closely enough. And I carried that grief for many years. Eventually, life moved forward. Then Vera was born, then Frederick, and finally Harriet. But the pain never truly left us. Your father could not bear seeing Daniel's photographs. So one night he packed away every photo, every toy, every reminder of our lost son. We didn't want you growing up under the shadow of that tragedy.
Mama, if Daniel drowned, why was his body never found?
Frederick's question hung in the air. Their mother did not answer immediately. Her eyes remained fixed on the photograph, as if she were staring directly into the past.
The river was very strong that day. Current carried things far away. The search team said, sometimes bodies are never recovered.
But something about the way she said it didn't feel convincing. Vera noticed it immediately. Her mother's voice had that same careful tone she used whenever she was trying to avoid something painful.
But Mama, did anyone actually see him fall into the river?
No, no one did.
Another silence filled the room. The siblings exchanged uneasy glances.
What if he didn't fall into the river at all?
We searched everywhere. Your father and I searched until we had no strength left. The police searched too. The entire village helped. They never found him.
That night, none of the siblings could sleep. The discovery had opened a door that could no longer be closed. For the first time in their lives, they began to wonder about the brother they had never known. What if Daniel didn't drown? What if something else happened? The next morning, Frederick made a decision. He began searching through old family boxes in the storage room. Most of the documents were dusty and yellow with age, electric bills, school certificates, old letters. But after hours of searching, he found something, an old newspaper clipping. The headline read, "3-year-old boy missing after riverbank incident." Beneath the headline was a small black and white photograph. The picture showed a young couple standing beside police officers, their parents. And beside the article was a tiny photo of a smiling little boy, Daniel. Frederick carefully read the article. It described how the boy disappeared during a large family gathering near the river. Witnesses believed the child wandered off while the adults were distracted. But one detail caught Frederick's attention. A strange man had been reported seen near the riverbank shortly before Daniel disappeared. After Daniel went missing, the police located the man and questioned him. But he denied knowing anything about the child, and with no evidence linking him to the disappearance, they eventually let him go. The case slowly went cold. Frederick felt a chill run down his spine. This detail had never been mentioned in their family before. He carried the clipping to his sisters.
Look at this.
Mama never told us this part. What if someone took him?
The idea sounded almost unbelievable, but the more they thought about it, the more possible it seemed. A missing child, a stranger seen near the scene. That evening, they showed the article to their mother. Florence looked at the clipping with trembling hands.
Yes, I remember that man.
Who was he?
He was a commercial driver passing through the village that day. No one knew him.
Did the police ever find him again?
No. They questioned him once after Daniel disappeared, but they had no evidence against him. Eventually, they stopped looking.
The room fell silent once more. For nearly 30 years, their family had believed their first child was gone forever. But now, a different possibility was beginning to form.
What if Daniel didn't die? What if he's still alive somewhere?
For 30 years, I tried not to think that way. Because hope can break your heart even more than loss. But sometimes I wondered.
At that moment, the mystery of the photograph became something much bigger. Not just a hidden family memory, but a question buried for decades. What really happened to Daniel? And somewhere far away, a man in his early 30s was living his life, completely unaware that a family had been searching for him for almost his entire lifetime. The siblings, Vera, Frederick, and Harriet, sat together in the old living room. The photograph and the newspaper clipping lay spread across the table between them. The house felt unusually quiet. Frederick tapped the newspaper clipping thoughtfully.
There's something that doesn't make sense.
What do you mean?
Mama said Daniel disappeared during a large family gathering. But how does a 3-year-old leave the house, walk all the way to the river, and no one notices? The river wasn't very far from the house, but it still seems strange that a child that young could wander that far without anyone seeing him.
It's not impossible, but it's strange. And if someone really took him, that person would have needed help.
Exactly. A stranger wouldn't even know there was a small child in the house, and during a gathering with so many people around, it would have been even harder.
Mama mentioned something earlier. She said Uncle Pashka was present that day.
Yes, she said he had been with Daniel earlier that afternoon.
And she also said Uncle Pascal was very close to him.
Mama said he loved that boy.
Maybe, or maybe he just seemed like he did.
Frederick, that's a serious thing to say. Uncle Pascal has always been good to us.
I know. I'm not accusing him. I'm just saying, if someone really took Daniel, they might have needed information from someone inside the house. And even if Uncle Pascal had nothing to do with it, he might still remember something from that day.
Yes, that's possible.
Over the next few days, the siblings began paying closer attention whenever their uncle visited. Not in an obvious way, just observing. They asked small questions about the past. Sometimes Pascal answered easily. Other times, when the conversation drifted toward Daniel, he grew quiet for a moment before responding. None of it proved anything, but it left the siblings uneasy. Even without saying it aloud, a small part of them had begun wondering if their uncle knew more than he had ever said. Then, one evening, something unexpected happened. Pascal arrived for one of his usual visits and spoke briefly with their father in the sitting room before stepping outside to take a phone call. From the living room window, Frederick noticed him walking toward the gate. A few minutes later, another man approached him on the street. The two men began speaking quietly. The stranger handed Pascal a small folder that looked like official documents. Nothing about the scene seemed dramatic, but Pascal kept glancing toward the house.
Who is that? I've never seen him before.
Let's go see.
Pascal turned in mild surprise.
Frederick, is everything all right?
We didn't mean to interrupt. We just saw someone here and wondered who he was.
Oh, this is Mr. Okafor from the land office.
Your uncle asked me to come by about some paperwork for a property he's trying to sell.
You thought something else was going on?
We've just been thinking a lot about Dan lately.
I see. I wish I could tell you something that would help. But I truly don't know what happened that day. I was there that afternoon. I spent some time with Daniel before he ran to his room to get something. After that, I stayed with the others at the gathering for a while, and then I went home. About 20 minutes later, I received a call saying Daniel had disappeared. If I knew anything about what happened to that boy, I would have told your parents a long time ago.
The sincerity in his voice left little room for doubt. Vera felt a pang of guilt. Harriet looked away. Slowly, painfully, the siblings realized the truth. They had been wrong. Later that night, the three of them sat again in the living room. The photograph and the newspaper clipping lay on the table. Their father passed through the room on his way down the hallway. When he noticed the photograph of Daniel lying on the table, he stopped. Just for a moment. Something flickered across his face. Something tense, almost startled. Then the expression disappeared. Without saying a word, he continued down the hallway. The siblings watched him go. None of them commented on it, but the moment lingered in the air. Harriet sighed heavily.
So, we're back to the beginning.
Frederick stared down at the picture of the smiling little boy. Frustration gnawed at him. They had followed the only lead they had, and it had led nowhere. For 30 years, the truth about Daniel had remained buried, and now it seemed as far away as ever. The siblings, Vera, Frederick, and Harriet, could not let the mystery rest, even after speaking with Uncle Pascal. Something about the past still felt unfinished. If their uncle truly knew nothing, then the question remained the same it had 30 years ago. What actually happened to Daniel? One evening, Frederick sprayed the old newspaper clipping across the dining table.
There's one thing we haven't done.
What?
We should revisit the case.
After 30 years, the police probably closed it long ago.
Maybe, but there must have been an officer in charge back then.
Yes, there was. His name was Inspector Ibrahim Hassan. He led the investigation when Daniel disappeared. Do you know where he is now? No. He would be very old by now, if he's still alive.
The next day, the siblings went to the regional police headquarters.
The officer who handled this case retired about 10 years ago, but we still have a contact address for him. Could we have it?
The officer hesitated briefly, then scribbled an address on a piece of paper. 2 days later, the siblings drove down a narrow road lined with mango trees. At the end stood a small bungalow with a rusted gate.
Good afternoon, sir. Are you Inspector Hassan?
I was. Who are you?
We're the children of Aaron and Florence Maxwell.
The Maxwell family, the missing boy.
They sat on the porch as he listened to their story, examining the photograph and newspaper clipping again. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, thoughtfully,
There was always something about that case that troubled me.
What do you mean?
We believed the boy had wandered into the river.
But no one saw him fall.
That was the first problem. But that wasn't the only thing. Your father,
What about him?
he insisted from the beginning that the boy fell into the river.
Maybe he was just panicking.
Perhaps, but usually parents beg us to consider every possibility. Your father never did.
Did you find that strange?
Yes, but we had no evidence.
Weeks of searching yielded nothing. The most plausible explanation became the one we all accepted.
But I always wondered, what if someone inside the house knew something we didn't?
Are you saying someone in our family might have known what happened?
I'm saying that your father seemed unusually certain about something nobody actually witnessed.
The siblings drove home in stunned silence. For several days after visiting the retired inspector, they tried to push the disturbing thought out of their minds. Surely it meant nothing. Daniel was their father's first son. Everyone in the village remembered how proud he used to look, carrying the little boy on his shoulders. He had mourned Daniel for years. Even now, he sometimes spoke of him with a softness that made their mother fall silent. Vera finally voiced what they were all thinking.
We're letting our imagination run wild.
Inspector Hassan only said Papa pushed the river theory. That doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. Why would Papa want Daniel gone? He had no reason.
That settled it. They decided they had been paranoid. But fate had other plans. A week later, Vera returned to the old house to help their mother sort through the remaining renovation boxes.
Be careful with those files. Some are very old.
Vera nodded and opened another faded envelope. Inside were several documents tied with a brittle rubber band. She began flipping through them, medical records, old receipts, until one document caught her attention. It was yellowed and delicate. Across the top, in official print, were the words birth certificate. Her heart skipped. Daniel. Carefully, she unfolded the paper. Her eyes moved down the page. Name of child, Daniel. Date of birth, 1993. Then she froze at the next line. Name of father. It wasn't Aaron Maxwell. It was another name entirely.
Frederick.
This isn't Papa's name.
What are you two looking at?
Wait, what? What did you find?
Mama, why isn't Papa's name on Daniel's birth certificate?
Daniel was not Aaron's biological son.